The Dossier really does exist, and people did attempt to make him see it. The royal family has always been known for staying quiet. They follow the rule of never whining and never offering explanations. Yet just a short while back, that long-held quiet was supposedly shattered by the one member of the family who avoids any kind of pretense. The Princess Royal, right after those explosive Saudi yacht pictures surfaced in January 2026, people with close ties to Buckingham Palace are saying that Princess Anne has at last shared her thoughts with the tight-knit group around her. What she said came across as brief, harsh, and deeply cutting. Tonight's headline story. Those startling pictures showing Meghan Markle aboard massive Mediterranean yachts don't seem to surprise anyone at the palace. People on the inside are stating that Princess Anne has verified the reality of a secret security screening document put together back in 2016. A file put together by British intelligence services that highlighted precisely the same kind of calculated social positioning and links to the Gulf region that everyone is now witnessing. For such a long time, Prince Harry kept insisting that his relatives were paranoid. He would say they were standing in the way of his joy. But now, word is that he's sitting in tears inside his Montecito residence, frozen by a frightening new understanding. When Princess Anne gave him those cautions years ago, she wasn't trying to be harsh. She was simply stating facts. To really understand the scale of the sorrow said to be unfolding in Montecito this evening, we have to travel back to the fall of 2016, the time when trouble first started gathering force. As soon as Prince Harry began seeing Meghan Markle, the usual royal procedures called for a thorough level 3 background check carried out by palace security staff. Normally, that kind of review amounts to little more than routine paperwork, looking into things like unpaid bills, any police history, or awkward past partnerships. Harry was completely confident it would receive quick approval without issue. He figured the palace would tick off the required items and happily accept his new partner into the fold. But in Meghan's case, accounts from those nearby indicate that the screening immediately set off serious warning signals throughout the intelligence network. Palace sources explain that what the gathered information uncovered went well beyond the image of an appealing actress from Hollywood. It supposedly brought to light a sharp inconsistency that no clever media strategy could smooth over. Princess Anne, well respected for her straightforward manner and strong ties within security circles, was apparently the initial high-ranking royal to go through the entire report. She didn't study the images the way someone might judge outfits or appearances. Instead, she approached them like an experienced strategist, and the pattern she uncovered refused to line up logically. That file drew special attention to the stretch of years from 2008 through 2012. Throughout that time, Meghan Markle presented herself publicly as an actress fighting to get by in the cutthroat Hollywood scene. Whatever earnings she had on record came from small parts in shows and quick guest spots on television. There was nothing major or steady. From every indication available, she belonged to the working world of performers, always chasing the next audition, stressing over bills, just like so many others trying to break through. Still, the monitoring records and movement histories included in the file supposedly painted an entirely opposite picture. According to the document, this same woman described as barely scraping by was regularly found aboard vessels valued in the tens of millions, taking part in private events where a single evening's expense exceeded what average people make over 12 months. That moment marked the point where palace security personnel shifted their view. She stopped being seen purely as a public figure and began registering as a possible threat. Within British intelligence practices, any signs of unexplained riches or unexplained entry into privileged settings stand out as the clearest warning of a potential security breach. When a person shows no visible source of funds yet, with the extravagance of someone extremely wealthy, the issue stops being chance and turns into something far more serious: who really controls you. Princess Anne studied that glaring mismatch in numbers and posed the very question Harry had avoided facing: who was footing the bill for everything? The file indicated that certain individuals had handled her transportation costs, secured her entry, and arranged her inclusion in those restricted social spheres. This went beyond simply enjoying an opulent way of living. It pointed toward influence, possible blackmail material, and real vulnerability. The palace worried about sensitive information being held by outside powers. They were concerned that the person about to join the family through marriage carried an unseen obligation tied to wealthy figures abroad. Anne made it clear to Harry that nobody keeps someone in those upper-level groups unless that person offers real value to them. Yet Harry, lost entirely in his feelings, could only perceive her as someone who needed protection. He missed the danger tightening its grip. Princess Anne had no need for supernatural insight to foresee the trouble coming for the Windsor household. All she required was straightforward arithmetic and a clear look at the finances. While Harry stayed caught up in the love story, those working around the palace kept their focus on the financial puzzle that made no sense in Meghan Markle's life before royalty. The detailed money trail supposedly set off serious alarms at MI6 within the 2016 file for clear and concrete causes. The specific window being examined runs exactly from 2008 to 2012. In those very same years, Meghan described herself openly as an actress struggling to stay afloat amid the harsh realities of the entertainment business in Hollywood. Her listed work history for that era includes only supporting parts, short TV cameos, and temporary jobs. She held no major stardom status. She had not yet landed a leading role in a long-running show. Within the tough financial landscape of Los Angeles, she fit squarely into the category of everyday working actors, pursuing casting calls relentlessly and concerned about covering basic living costs, much like everyone else in similar positions. Carrying a briefcase as a model on Deal or No Deal placed her firmly in a modest earnings range. That kind of work certainly never covers chartered flights or evenings on luxury boats. Nevertheless, both the Saudi-linked file and the photographs now coming to light describe a standard of living that even well-established film stars think twice about paying for personally. The recent pictures show her present on boats valued at many millions. She is seen joining private events across Monaco and other Mediterranean locations, gatherings so costly that one night's bill surpasses most people's yearly salary. At this stage, the discussion moves away from mere guesses and enters the realm of undeniable numbers. Paychecks from cable television programs do not support extended stays in Monaco during summer. Women trying to make it as actresses do not move effortlessly through powerful international settings unless someone with substantial resources provides consistent backing. An honest look at the expenses involved: private jets, high-end clothing, fees for entry into closed groups, makes the situation impossible to ignore. Princess Anne reviewed the accounting and put forward the direct question: who covered the costs for everything? Under ordinary conditions, those figures refused to balance. The file pointed toward certain people handling her journeys, granting her entry, and making sure she belonged in those elevated surroundings. From the perspective of British intelligence, any instance of unexplained money or unexplained privileges counts as the strongest sign of possible compromise. The conclusion drawn in the document appears to have been that this went far beyond occasional fortunate invitations or lucky timing. It wasn't a brief stroke of good fortune. The images cover multiple years of steady involvement. That pattern suggests the assistance she received went beyond sporadic favors and amounted to ongoing backing. It looked less like chance encounters and more like deliberate investment. Once you notice that degree of ongoing support coming from individuals tied to Saudi interests and influential Gulf figures, the logical next step is to wonder exactly what kind of payoff those backers anticipated. Princess Anne delivered her caution with striking accuracy. Meghan had not simply been seeing Harry in a casual way. According to this view, she had been maintained within a particular standard of living, and individuals in those powerful groups rarely sustain someone's presence unless that person delivers genuine usefulness to their goals. Real influence rarely offers anything without anticipating a serious return. In this line of thinking, Meghan covered her place not through personal funds, but through her attendance, her ability to keep quiet, and her carefully chosen positioning at important occasions. To Harry, she came across as someone independent who had fought past difficulties. To those at the palace, she looked like someone stepping into the royal circle while carrying a heavy, hidden obligation linked to powerful foreign figures. And soon enough, we learned that the individual said to have arranged that obligation had remained out of sight, prepared to call it in at the right moment. If those yachts acted as the setting, then Marcus Anderson played the role of the one directing the entire scene. Over the years, regular news outlets have described Marcus simply as Meghan's close friend or as an innocent advisor connected to the upscale Soho House network of private venues. Yet within the restricted pages of the palace background check, he appeared in a completely separate role. Princess Anne supposedly recognized him less as a friend and more as someone managing and guiding her path. To see the reason behind that view, we need to look closely at 2015, the period right before Meghan crossed paths with Harry. While most people assume she was busy working on her TV show, intelligence information points to her presence at something far more significant, what amounted to a culminating event in her rise through elite social layers held during the lavish launch of Soho House in Istanbul. That particular occasion forms the crucial connection tying the Saudi-linked powerful individuals named in the yacht file to the woman who would later become the Duchess of Sussex. Istanbul holds a unique position, sitting where Eastern and Western influences meet both in location and in culture. For Meghan, it acted as the vital crossing point from relative unknown status in Hollywood to doors opening toward worldwide influence. Amid the classic Turkish baths and elevated gatherings with views across the Bosphorus, the careful positioning within high society supposedly reached its highest point. Quiet accounts describe the evening not as an ordinary celebration or venue debut, but as a kind of trading floor for valuable relationships. As the person in charge of worldwide membership for Soho House, Marcus Anderson reportedly shaped the invitation list with precision to blend creative talent together with serious financial power. The file probably noted that Meghan received introductions at that gathering to a targeted group of financiers from the Middle East, along with influential figures from the Gulf who possessed vast resources and reach. These settings exist for deliberate purposes. People gain entry because others see potential value, whether social, personal, or tactical, that can serve their broader aims. The narrative stretches across continents, moving from the shining harbors of Monaco to the ancient avenues of Istanbul, and ultimately arriving at the grand residences of London. It serves as a reminder of how closely linked yet carefully concealed the realm of the truly powerful continues to be in our time. Coming back now to that Istanbul thread and the reason it has left Prince Harry reportedly unable to speak, it compels him to face a painful possibility. The man he regarded as his wife's closest friend may have been carrying out an assigned role the entire time. That single idea reshapes the whole story of how her connection with Prince Harry actually began. The version shared with the public described their first meeting as a blind date arranged in London through a shared acquaintance. That acquaintance turned out to be Marcus Anderson. But if the foundation laid out in the Saudi file holds true, the encounter was never about two people naturally matching up romantically. It was supposedly a carefully engineered arrangement with business-like intent. Marcus did not simply bring together two unattached individuals in hopes of chemistry. He allegedly carried out the deliberate placement of a person prepared specifically for that role. He presented someone who had already devoted close to 10 years, mastering the navigation of privileged environments with skill and awareness. She had developed a sharp ability to interpret social dynamics and build alliances with purpose. Harry is probably coming to see now that the qualities Meghan displayed when winning him over, her focused attention, her careful restraint, her talent for making him feel uniquely seen, were not mere inborn traits. They had been quietly assessed and refined across numerous evenings spent in those exclusive yacht settings over an extended period. When she stepped into his circle, she gave no impression of being unfamiliar with that world because, in reality, she had long been part of similar structures. She carried herself with an instinctive grasp of rank and protocol because she had operated within those systems in different roles for years. Princess Anne is said to have cautioned Harry repeatedly that the situation amounted to a carefully laid snare being activated. She recognized Marcus Anderson as the direct link connecting those compensated yacht appearances to the entry point within the royal family. She tried to impress upon him that allowing someone carrying such extensive transactional connections into the heart of the monarchy created an explosive risk ready to detonate. And evidence of those connections went beyond written records locked away. It existed in material form. It carried high value. And soon it would appear publicly, displayed around her neck and ears for everyone to notice and question. We have covered the hidden aspects and the Istanbul ties in detail. Still, doubters, and maybe even Prince Harry at first, could insist on concrete evidence before accepting these assertions. They might say that talk of evenings on yachts amounts to nothing more than unproven chatter and hearsay. But Princess Anne supposedly directed attention toward one particular detail within the Saudi file that shifted those whispers into solid, visible fact. That evidence has hung plainly from the Duchess's ears for years, right where anyone could see it. Now is the moment to look carefully at those choppered earrings. This part of the account changes the unworkable numbers into something physical and unmistakable that anybody can observe. On the surface, those impressive dangling diamond pieces, valued at roughly £500,000, were presented simply as a wedding present and nothing else. But once you learn the actual source of the gift, the whole idea of an innocent actress from television falls apart completely. The giver was not some close acquaintance marking the celebration. It was not a film executive she had collaborated with. It was not even the Queen extending a warm gesture of inclusion. The gift came directly from Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, widely referred to as MBS, of Saudi Arabia. Let's use the strict reasoning from the Saudi file that Princess Anne is said to have presented to Harry long before. Why would the supreme leader of Saudi Arabia, a figure positioned at the absolute top of worldwide authority and riches, choose to send a personal present worth $500,000 to an actress known mainly for cable television work, someone he supposedly had no prior contact with? Among the elite society of the Gulf region, gifts of that scale and quality are never handed to total strangers. They go to women who are personally known. They go to women who have been screened, entertained, and possibly engaged in some meaningful way. This particular present supports the description found in source information. Saudi-affiliated powerful people formed part of her close network well before any marriage to Harry became public knowledge. Experts in intelligence matters have frequently suggested that earrings of this kind match what gets termed a severance or departure gift within the framework of intentional social positioning when an individual transitions into a lasting committed arrangement, particularly one carrying such exceptional visibility. Former supporters frequently offer one last substantial token as formal recognition. It serves as a kind of final courteous settlement. It signals appreciation for loyalty and silence maintained. It indicates that previous arrangements have concluded and no further duties remain. The underlying material prompts the reminder that any major investment naturally leads to questions about the anticipated benefit for those providing it. Those earrings likely represented the culmination or final installment connected to years of careful attendance and guarded conduct aboard those invitation-only networking platforms on the water. That perspective sheds light on the intense dismay that reportedly seized Buckingham Palace during a specific moment in 2018. Recall the uproar over so-called blood diamonds. Meghan chose to wear precisely those earrings to an official state banquet held in Fiji, coming only weeks after the horrific killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Investigations by the CIA determined that MBS himself had directed that killing. Staff at the palace are said to have pleaded with her to leave the pieces behind, fully aware of how disastrous the timing and associations would appear. They recognized that the visual impact would severely damage the monarchy's public standing. Yet beyond mere appearance concerns, Princess Anne, who had studied the full file years prior, understood that wearing them carried a deeper message than poor judgment in fashion. By choosing to put them on despite strong counsel from the crown against it, Meghan was doing more than following a style preference or showing confidence. According to this account, she was openly declaring where her deeper allegiances truly rested. She displayed the emblem of her earlier existence, even as she stood beside a British prince during a formal state occasion. The act served as an unmistakable public statement of recognition toward the Gulf influencers who had helped elevate her through elite networks. When Harry asked about them, she explained that she had simply borrowed the earrings for that event and attached no special importance to them. But for Princess Anne, familiar with the complete background from years earlier, the choice represented an open rejection of expected royal restraint. It demonstrated that the Saudi ties belonged not merely to a distant chapter of her history. They remained a living, ongoing connection she continued to honor. This stands as the concrete proof that has left Harry reportedly without words when faced with it today. He now has to wrestle with two versions of reality that directly contradict each other and cannot coexist. There is the wife who presented herself as a dedicated advocate for humanitarian values and feminist principles, advancing forward-thinking ideas. Then there is the same woman who willingly wore jewels associated with a disputed government tied to her own documented yacht history. Those earrings form the unbreakable connection linking the actress scraping by in 2012 to the Duchess appearing in 2018. They established that the associations never faded away upon meeting Harry or entering royal duties. Instead, they traveled straight into the palace corridors alongside her. And as Harry examines the Saudi file in the present moment, understanding that his Aunt Anne had known the full story behind those diamonds from the start and attempted to alert him, the emotional burden of having been misled starts to overwhelm him. He stood up publicly to defend the very person who wore visible signs of her own hidden past with apparent pride. Ancient Greek drama includes a term called anagnorisis. It refers to that pivotal instant of recognition, the precise point when someone finally perceives the devastating reality about their existence that had escaped them until then. For Prince Harry, alone amid the quiet expanse of his Montecito property, that instant of painful awareness is said to be unfolding at this very hour as these facts settle in. Accounts describe Harry as struck silent and weeping. But to fully appreciate the tragedy, we need to examine exactly what kind of grief those tears represent. He is not shedding them over old images showing his wife looking attractive in swimwear aboard a boat. The sorrow comes from recognizing that the Saudi file, the same document Princess Anne supposedly urged him to take seriously back in 2016, has effectively become the outline that shaped his entire personal journey. To appreciate how deeply this cuts, we should break down the mental framework Harry relied on across the last 10 years or so. Throughout that period, he constructed his sense of self around one central and compelling storyline, the role of rescuer. He held an unshakable conviction that Meghan existed as a vulnerable figure, a sincere, biracial American performer cast unprepared into the harsh British media environment, and the strict expectations of palace existence. He felt convinced she lacked the tools to cope with relentless scrutiny and institutional demands. In his mind, it became his sacred responsibility to shield and deliver her from those pressures. He surrendered his cherished military ranks. He walked away from his inherited standing and privileges. He severed connections with his relatives completely so he could fulfill the part of her devoted protector. Yet the validation now coming through Princess Anne is said to dismantle that entire carefully assembled story without remainder. Pictures of Meghan relaxing on vessels surrounded by Gulf power players demonstrate clearly that Meghan Markle required no rescue from any quarter. She had never truly been the inexperienced newcomer she appeared to be upon entering his sphere. While Harry concerned himself with teaching her proper royal etiquette, available evidence indicates she had already mastered far more perilous and intricate social landscapes than anything the palace could throw at her. Someone capable of thriving amid the intense transactional dynamics surrounding a Saudi royal figurehead would likely have found interactions with the Queen comparatively straightforward. Harry now faces the nauseating likelihood that her apparent innocence formed part of a deliberate act, and that he remained the single person present who failed to recognize the performance for what it was. That understanding pushes him to revisit his earlier exchanges with Princess Anne with fresh and painful sharpness. Memories of their discussion at Gatcombe Park return vividly. He recalls her specific cautions regarding intentional social maneuvering and the dangers those posed to family security. Back then, he brushed her off as biased against the woman he loved. He labeled her attitude as envy toward his personal fulfillment. In his published book, he described his relatives as emotionally distant figures who acted as antagonists, blocking his path to happiness. But in the present, confronted with irrefutable documentation of those compensated yacht experiences spread before him, he must accept the hardest truth imaginable. Anne had been correct in every respect. Her intention had never been to sabotage his future or withhold joy out of malice. She had worked to prevent him from becoming the unwitting target in an elaborate, years-long scheme of manipulation. And the quiet coming from the nearby bedroom inside his Montecito residence carries its own heavy message